Horizon Channel Home Suji Reaction. This is Why Did France Leave NATO? Short animated documentary by the channel History Matters. France left NATO when? There's sometimes talk online of when France left NATO in 1966. Alright. And what that meant for the Cold War and the alliance as a whole. One thing you should know is that France never actually left NATO, but instead left its unified command structure. But still, this move made waves. So why did France withdraw from this, and how did other NATO members react? What the hell is a command structure, unified command structure? So I'm guessing they just if they left just basically all your bullshit from the top, right, of the operations. But I guess from the core of it, they were still part of NATO. I guess they were still going to act like they're part of NATO or something in case of defending and things like that. So they just didn't like the structure. I'm guessing it might have something to do with Britain or something, or I guess United States, right? NATO from the start has been controlled by most of the United States, right? So I don't know if it's with the United States or something has to be with Britain, right? Because I know it's a part of, it's some kind of a union, NATO countries, and in that I guess some people might be leading some part, and France is like, I don't like that, right? Probably justifiably so, because yeah, it has to do with something Britain or USA. I don't know, this is just a guess. We'll see if that's right or not, but seeing the history, it has to do with Britain, I guess, right? I don't know. Remember, we'll like my reaction. Don't forget to subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more. Check out other reactions. There's a link in the description. There you'll find playlists for history videos and things like that. History Matters is a great channel. So if you know other great history channels like this, who explains really good topics, brief time, or I prefer it if it's like 10-15 minutes videos. Don't recommend channels that has like an hour long video or something. It's really hard to make reaction out of that. But yeah, let's watch this one.
The Cold War is often seen as two united sides facing off in an ideological battle for the future. Yet, as many of you will have guessed, this wasn't always the case, and both sides had their own more rebellious members. In the case of the West, this was France, and their withdrawal from NATO in 1966 at the height of the Cold War is often discussed as an example of this.
It's so much of two sides, is it? After NATO, I guess Russia tried to join the NATO, but when they realized that they can't or something like that, they created their own alliance, which is named after I forgot the name, but named after some place where they, I guess, gathered up for meeting or something. I don't know what that was. But I guess then they created their own alliance, which wasn't that big, right, compared to the NATO.
This course of action seems like it wouldn't have been a good idea at this point, and thus raises the question, why? Why did France withdraw from NATO? So, just to make it clear, despite what's often discussed, France didn't actually withdraw from NATO entirely, but from its unified command structure. It was still fully committed to defending other NATO members in the case of war. The command structure it had just left was created to lead and coordinate NATO's many militaries in the event of such a war. At its head was the Supreme Allied Commander, who could be from any of NATO's member states, so long as that member state began with a U and ended with United States of America.
Yeah, there you go.
Second in command was the Deputy
I mean, in that command structure, you can clearly see the big-ass flag of United States and top of it, kind of make you, give you the feeling that it's probably going to be from the United States.
Commander who could also be from any NATO country, but in reality, just Britain. This upset French President Charles de Gaulle, who felt that it would be nice if a Frenchman could gain the position at least once. And so in 1966, he withdrew French forces from NATO's unified command.
What? Oh shit, I just predicted this before starting the video. Like, it probably has to do with US or Britain. Probably Britain. It is Britain, right? Certain position was only given to a British guy. Just, I guess French leader didn't like that and just fucked off. I said that. I mean, by now watching all the historical videos and historical events, I guess it's kind of a clear trend. You can just guess it. What could have been the issue?
Structure. This wasn't just done for the sake of pride, but because de Gaulle wanted to ensure French strategic independence. He and many in the military were concerned that France would become reliant on NATO for operational planning and thus would no longer be self-reliant. For France's budding nuclear arsenal, this meant zero collaboration in terms of joint nuclear strategy with Britain and America. And in terms of conventional forces...
Ooh, that kind of, with the recent event that is happening right now, I saw some news about recent thing where people are talking about this, like, in all of the European states, NATO members, I guess France, in the EU's basically, all the part of EU, only France has the nuclear bombs now because Britain is not part of EU anymore. right? And talk of being European countries being self-reliant, so they don't have to rely on United States or Britain, things like that, right? EU members, and basically of those EU members who are the part of NATO, of them who has the nuclear weapons.
France's leadership wanted the French army to be totally independent in terms of tactics, procurement and policy. There were also concerns about placing French troops under the command of non-French leaders and how they would be used. This concern wasn't exactly new either, and was the reason that the French had withdrawn their navy from the unified command structure in the previous decade. This all culminated in a small diplomatic row with the USA. When leaving NATO's command structure, de Gaulle also ordered all foreign troops out of France. President Johnson saw this coming, and when de Gaulle made the formal request for all American troops to depart France, his government's response was, does that include those in the cemeteries as well? Furthermore, France also banned the housing of American nuclear weapons on its soil. Importantly, these changes were incredibly popular with the French people, which is why no French leaders changed their arrangement for the rest of the century. Now, this move wasn't France's first move towards leaving NATO altogether. In fact, de Gaulle had signed a secret agreement with the United States promising that France would rejoin the unified command structure in the event of a Soviet invasion. And whilst many NATO members were completely outraged at the French move, the American...
Alright, so it's basically a simple trend that obviously the NATO's top thing was like, you know, fighting the Soviet aggression, right? Fighting the Soviets, that's it. That's all that the NATO's job was, right? So for that core reason, France is always part of NATO. Like if the Soviets basically, you know, create some kind of issue, we are definitely part of NATO. But they just didn't like how the things were working, like how basically USA was top of it, how Britain had certain you know, position there, how French army was, I guess, used, right? Like like NATO owns those particular people, those particular army, and by NATO obviously USA, Britain, and how they use them. And there were many internal struggles there, but at the core of it, France is part of NATO, as in to defend against Soviet aggression, I guess.
Response was one of resigned disagreement. In their eyes, NATO did not need France in it to survive, and the Johnson administration was convinced that it would only be 5 or 10 years until France rejoined, although they'd have to wait slightly longer than that. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for watching, with a special thanks to my patrons, James Bizanet, Kelly Moneymaker, Rob Waterhouse, Mo, Marvin Cassow, Aaron the White, Jordan Longley, James Castaneda, Gustav Swan, Jerry Lambden, Kaywood, Miss Izette, Spinning 3 Plates, Lexi
Yeah, okay, so... Okay, of all the videos I've reacted of history, and especially this channel, this was the most predictable, at least for me, right? Because I literally predicted this, like it's gonna be something with the Britain, something has to do with command structure, they didn't like who was controlling them. It was that. I mean, this is real world event, it's not some kind of a TV show, so I guess things can be predictable, right? I mean, it's not hard to see that, but yeah. Alright, well, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, so I know which type of videos to react to more. Comment down if you want to react to any specific video from this channel or any other, and I'll see you next time.